Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Moving Toward a Better Understanding of Sustainability for Your Business and Customers. I would like to introduce our panel members today, beginning with Mark Mazura, who will also be moderating the webinar for us. Mark serves as Senior Vice President of Global Supply Chain Marketing for Cotton Incorporated, where he's responsible for the company's global marketing and technical support programs with retailers, brands, and manufacturers. Mark is a frequent speaker and advisor to the textile industry on issues relating to sustainability, responsible sourcing, supply chain strategy, and fiber economics. He's the chairman of the Industry Advisory Board, Textile, Apparel, and Technology Management Program in the College of Textiles at North Carolina State University, where he is also an adjunct associate professor. Next, I'm going to introduce Rod Snyder, and Rod is the president of Field to Market. He has served as president since March 2014. Prior to this role, Rod held positions as public policy director for the National Corn Growers Association and government affairs leader for Crop Life America. He's particularly recognized for his work at the intersection of agricultural and environmental issues. He has previously served on the board of directors of the Conservation Technology Information Center, on the steering committee of the Agricultural Nutrient Policy Council, and on the executive committee of Field to Market as chair of the Pesticide Policy Coalition.
Go, Ron.
Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Deborah Crystal. She is the president and CEO of the size-inclusive fashion company Caden Voss. She's the nation's leading expert in plus-size fashion, which is fat studies in fashion, and fat shaming in the fashion industry. In her mission to create a more size-accepting fashion industry, Deb's research helps individuals and corporations understand internalized weight bias, discrimination, and fat phobia of plus-size consumers. Her research on weight bias within the fashion industry has been featured by renowned publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Forbes. And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Kathleen Kirkwood, the founder of BRA, Bra Recycling Association. Kathleen started her career as a Ford model, then became a fashion entrepreneur in 1983, inventing the world's first clip-on shoulder pads, Pints of Pads. Over 14 million pairs were sold in Bloomingdale's and Neiman Marcus, and then made it onto QVC in 1992, where she expanded her intimate solution to a full collection still selling today. In 2010, while witnessing a colossal bra shipment in her China factory, she was inspired to create a recycling solution to her bra band and others, which is now U.S. patent pending BRA carpet padding with Leggett and Plaid. There are 500 million bras sold each year, and with each recycling consumer engagement averaging 7 bras, that's almost 50,000 tons a month in potential waste reduction from landfills and oceans. The BRA website offers services so brands and retailers and individuals can partake in a circular fashion solution with bra trade-ins for new bras. She is a speaker for fashion sustainability and also has participated in the NASDAQ talks on sustainability. Kathleen also trained with Al Gore in 2008 for the Renewable Energy Organization Climate Reality Project. So thank you all for joining us today. We have a great panel, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark to kick off the session.
Thank you, and let me extend a welcome on behalf of all the panel members to all of our participants in this session at the Curve Show. So to begin this session, what I'd like to do is move through a short presentation where we're going to ask some fundamental questions about the issues related to moving toward a better understanding of sustainability. And these questions and some information in this short presentation is really designed to serve as a springboard for the panel conversation that will follow. So let's explore the first question, which is, why do we need to move towards sustainability? Well, some thoughts on that. The first is, our industry garners a lot of attention. And when I'm talking about our industry, I'm referring to textiles in general. And because basically everyone on the planet is a consumer of the products of the textile and apparel industry, we get a lot of attention. And you see articles like this and headlines like this, how your clothes are poisoning our oceans and food supply. So we're a large consumer industry, a lot of products, lots of consumers worldwide, big impact. And that type of focus on our industry means that we have to pay attention to what's happening with the sustainability issue. The second question for us is sustainability means different things to different groups. If you ask anybody about it, you get different definitions, but more importantly, how do we get on the same page, or do we need to? Some aspects of sustainability and the definition of sustainability include strategies, and sustainability are about making choices. It's about the trade-offs among impacts and needs of society, business, and environment. We often hear of the triple bottom line: people, planet, profit. So if it's society, business, environment, or people, planet, profit, however you define it, it's something about the balance of these needs and the impacts and trade-offs that are inherent in making choices about these different needs. There's another aspect to the definition of sustainability that sometimes is out there, and that's kind of the temporal or the time aspect of sustainability. It's not enough to think about the choices we make today, but really how the choices today affect the next generation or the longer term, and the balance of resources and the impacts on the environment and society and business longer term. So that time aspect is also part sometimes of the definition of sustainability. But one thing that is apparent as we talk about sustainability and how we all get on the same page is really the realization that everything we do as an industry, and that's suppliers, retailers, brands, and associated organizations, as well as our consumers, everything we do has an impact. So sustainability is not about achieving zero impact. That's a myth. Sustainability is about these trade-offs and balancing and understanding impacts in these trade-off decisions, but with the understanding that everything we do in any part of the supply chain and all the way through the consumer, and as we'll hear in our panel discussion, even beyond the initial products, everything has an impact. A good example of the complexity of sustainability is just one of our web pages from our Cotton Works page at Cotton Incorporated. And the Cotton Works site is a wonderful resource for companies in the intimates business who are looking for information about cotton. But this site also has a lot of information about sustainability, as you can see here. But one of the things that's immediately apparent is that sustainability is not simple. It's actually quite complex. It has a lot of dimensions to it, whether we're talking about understanding ingredients like cotton or other fibers, or whether we're talking about aspects of circularity or recycling, or life cycle assessment, or technologies. All of these different aspects of sustainability are pretty meaty, they're pretty complex. So just defining sustainability is the first part, but the actual definition and the working aspects of sustainability are often quite complex and contain various aspects. One good example of that, and a good framework for us in a discussion about sustainability, is life cycle assessment. Life cycle assessment is actually a field of science, and it looks at the concept of what it takes to create a product, what we do with that product, and then ultimately how we dispose of that product. And it's a good framework for our panel discussion today. And as you see in this picture, on the left side of your screen, you'll see some inputs like water, energy, chemicals. And then these lead to the creation of raw materials and manufacturing and consumer usage, and then disposal or end of life. And then output issues. What are the emissions? What are the wastes? What are the residuals and co-products? So this life cycle assessment is the process through which you evaluate all the inputs everything in the middle, and then the outputs. It's quantitative, it's scientific, and usually provides very good fact-based understanding for talking about sustainability of any product, including apparel and intimates. Here's a good example from this life cycle assessment. This chart shows us the impacts on some critical factors like global warming, energy, the quality of water used, and the quality of, or the quantity of water consumed. And one of the things I want you to see in this picture, again, as a good example of the complexity, is the fact that for each of these environmental impacts, there are different phases of the supply chain, such as in the case of cotton, moving from seed to bale, the creation of the raw fiber, textile manufacturing, the transformation of that fiber into products, and then use and disposal, how consumers use it and what they do with it, and then even transport, what it takes to move products through the supply chain and ultimately to consumers. One of the things that's really important to note in this picture is that whether we're talking about global warming, energy, water quality, there are different impacts to these major environmental factors at each stage in the life cycle of a product, like a knit shirt. And that's true of intimates as well. So one of the takeaways from this is sustainability is complex, but it also is something that permeates all elements of the supply chain. So what that means is that we have impacts throughout the supply chain. Therefore, collaboration across the supply chain is required. So how do we get on the same page? Well, it may be that we have to reach out to partners throughout the supply chain or work with other organizations and initiatives in the industry to help us get on the same page and to collaborate. We're going to hear from one of our panelists later about some of the leading industry initiatives to encourage collaboration through a very clever model. Circularity is a topic that's a key part of sustainability. And this addresses the issue of the use of a product, but beyond the initial use of a product, what do you do with it? Can you reuse it? Can you take aspects of that, materials or fibers? Can you recycle it? Are there other uses for that product? Can it be reused maybe to create more of that product or other products? And then ultimately, what does the pathway look for returning that material? And this is a picture, again, based on work we've done at Cotton Incorporated that talks about the circularity of cotton and the concept that material selection, here indicated in yellow, comes from the earth, and it can go through many different initial products that can then be reused or recycled into other types of products, other types of uses, and then ultimately returning to the earth as a biodegradable natural material. We're going to spend some time on the panel talking about this view of circularity and particularly recycling. Here again are some aspects of recycling that are important in the discussion about sustainability. And to give you an example of some of the things that have been done with cotton and denim, that denim material has been recovered and garnetted or chopped up and put back together into a reformulated insulation product. And this has had the advantage of keeping the apparel out of the landfills. It's also raised consumer awareness about what can be done with the fiber and material beyond just wearing a comfortable pair of jeans or a comfortable apparel product.
Right. That's great.
We can gain some insight into other uses and new uses for ingredients like cotton. In the picture you see here, you see three images. And I want to start on the left, and this is an image of PLA pellets, and these are derived from corn. And then there's an image of cotton, and this is pulverized cotton, or what we call cotton flock. And cotton flock, pulverized cotton, along with PLA coming from corn, can be reconstituted as filament. And that filament, made of completely natural material, can then be used in 3D printers. The predominant material in 3D printers is plastic, but plastic is non-renewable and has significant environmental impacts. So how do we take that and find natural materials and natural alternatives? So you see a good example of that here, and you can see products like that little boat, or a wide variety of other types of physical products, perhaps buttons, perhaps snaps and attachments in apparel or intimates, that could be made from natural materials that have been recycled and repurposed, reused in very different ways to replace synthetic materials. You also see some examples here, again, of some of these novel uses for natural materials like cotton. Travel mugs, or again, you see this 3D printer product, but you also see something like toothbrushes. Think of everybody who has a toothbrush, and even more than one. Those toothbrushes typically are plastic handles. So what happens if maybe in a bigger definition and view of sustainability, we can replace the plastic with something that's natural, like cotton and corn, natural renewable materials, naturally biodegradable materials. So these are the kinds of things that are pushing the frontiers of sustainability. And again, we're going to come back to this in the panel discussion and get some insights into the end of product life and opportunities to recycle and reuse. Return, of course, is that last step in the whole circularity of products. And this may be the best slide I have for intimates when it comes to cotton. This gentleman in the plaid shirt is a researcher, and he's in the state of Arkansas. And what you see here in his hands and left and right are the remains of underwear that was buried in the soil for about 45 days. And the synthetic underwear is in his left hand. And what remains of the cotton underwear, and it was not a thong, it was full set of cotton briefs, but what remains is in his right hand. And this is a very dramatic illustration of the whole issue of returning to the earth, or the biodegradability of materials, as again, part of this bigger definition of sustainability. And like a lot of the things in the sustainability discussion, it's important that the claims about sustainability or product use or biodegradability or reuse, that these claims are really supported by facts and science. There's a lot of misinformation about sustainability and different aspects of materials. And it's important in the debate that we all have the opportunity to look at good science. We're going to explore this in the panel discussion as we talk to our panelists about the importance of science, and we explore how companies can come together and collaborate even on issues of measurement and science. Now we get to our third question. How do we communicate sustainability to our customers? So assuming that we in the industry have it figured out, which we may not, how do we at least think about communicating that to customers and stakeholders? Well, a couple thoughts on that. It's not easy. As you've seen a little bit in this preliminary set of slides here, sustainability is complex. And there is a need for science-based information and decisions. There, in fact, is too much misinformation about sustainability. And it's really incumbent upon everyone to learn more about that. And that's the purpose of today's session, to learn about that, and then to make better, more informed and science and fact-based decisions. One other aspect of this sustainability being complex is extremely important, and that is no single score or scorecard tells it all. This goes back to the definition of sustainability. And the definition is sustainability is complex. It's a series of trade-offs. So there's a temptation in a lot of our businesses to think that we can reduce it down to a single number, or a hang tag with a color code, or a score of a 3 is better than a score of a 2. it's not that easy. And I think we'll explore that as well in some of our panel discussion. But no single score or scorecard can tell the whole story of what's going on in the trade-off around sustainability. And that's critical for us to keep in mind when we're communicating that to customers who very often want very simple understanding of what you're trying to market or sell to them. Here's an example, again, as an illustration of complexity. This is an advertisement for Original Mountain Pant, and it says, "Why organic cotton?" Certified organic cotton means no GMOs. That's genetically modified organisms, fertilizers, toxins, chemicals, or aerial spraying, therefore reducing the impact on our environment.
Right.
Pretty straightforward. Absolutely wrong.
Oh.
This is an example of misinformation in the sense that certified organic means only one of these things. It means no GMOs. It does not mean fertilizers, toxins, chemicals. In fact, there's a lot of fertilizers, some of them are very toxic, and chemicals used. Organic cotton is actually not a different cotton, it's a different way of growing the cotton. So the regulation around organic has to do with how cotton is produced, not that it's a different cotton. So this again is a good example of a well-intentioned advertisement, but something that is factually terribly incorrect. And it's incumbent upon those of us in the industry to make sure that we're communicating the correct facts. Otherwise, I would contend that we're confusing consumers. Here's a good example. We talked about some of those materials. This is a picture from the farm and garden store, and you can see these products on the shelf. And these products are sold to any consumer who has the money to buy them. And you can see that they are used to kill weeds or crabgrass or diseases on plants. And all of these things, one could argue, are toxic or extremely toxic. The one in the middle is approved for use in organic production. So my point here again is we have to really search for the facts and the science and then think about communicating what is true and appropriate to consumers. So as we move towards sustainability with correct information, it's important to note, again, using this example in organic, there are 3 different production systems for growing cotton. Most of the world's production actually uses biotech or genetically modified seed varieties, which are not allowed in organic production. In organic production, as a method of growing cotton, it's not a different cotton. And this type of production method accounts for less than 1% of the world's total production of cotton. So my point here is not to pick on organic production. If you find that that type of production method suits your sustainability strategy, then you should pursue that. The point here is we need to look at the facts and the science, and then you need to make sure that you're accurately discussing that in your sustainability strategy and then conveying that to your customers. So we've examined 3 different questions now and some thoughts about those. And what I would like to do at this point is we're going to move to our panel discussion, and we're going to explore some of these questions and different aspects of them. And to start the conversation, I would like to first ask Rod Snyder. Rod is with the Field to Market program. And what I'd like to ask Rod is to take just a moment to explain your organization, but then help us understand this aspect of collaboration in sustainability.
Well, thanks very much, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to join this great panel. I'm looking forward to a lot of the comments this afternoon. I'm going to start off, as Mark described, talking about how industries can get organized to work together on issues like sustainability. And while I don't have a depth of expertise in the apparel sector specifically, Field to Market does work with a lot of farmers across the United States on issues of environmental impact to determine how can we best move the industry forward and produce more with less, and ultimately shrink the footprint of the raw materials that are being sourced to produce goods. And in this case, that is cotton. For the past 15 years, Field to Market has worked across the full agricultural value chain in the United States to define, measure, and advance the sustainability of crop production. And cotton has been a key crop within our program. From the very early days, I think one of the key things that we determined is that we needed to have consensus and agreement on what are the outcomes as an industry that we're trying to achieve. Is it reducing greenhouse gas emissions, improving biodiversity, improving water quality, reducing soil erosion? What can we as an industry determine are the North Star goals that we are all working towards? Because once we have those values and goals identified, then you can begin to fill in the pieces behind that. And so coming up with outcomes-based and science-based metrics that began to define what sustainability meant for our industry and for consumers, that was really the starting point. We also needed to build in multi-stakeholder governance to make sure that all voices can be represented within these conversations. We've been able to create a multi-stakeholder initiative where farmers are sitting next to environmental groups, that are sitting next to agribusiness companies, that are sitting next to universities, as well as apparel brands. Everybody around the same table having a conversation about the complexities, some of the things that Mark was talking about, and things we'll be hearing later in this hour. What are those complexities that we all need to gain a better understanding of and come to agreement on how we're going to make progress together? So that was really the basis for why Field to Market was organized in the way that we have been. And I would say a couple other quick items. One is through a series of national indicators reports, we've been able to take a look at where has cotton production been historically over the last 40 years, 4 decades? What are the types of changes that we've seen over time? And then how does that then create the context for moving forward? What sorts of improvements do we want to achieve in the next 40 years? We have the same amount of land and water today that we're going to have in 2050 or 2060, except we have billions more people on the planet that we have to clothe and feed. So how do we get there? How do we make sure that we're using resources in the most efficient way possible and having the least amount of environmental impact as possible? That takes science, it takes collaboration, it takes everybody along the value chain committed to the same types of goals and principles. So that's where our organization comes into play, at least for U.S. cotton and for U.S. agriculture. We've been very fortunate to work with Cotton Incorporated and Cotton Leads and now the U.S. Cotton Trust Protocol and others. And then, of course, further down the supply chain, other initiatives and programs that I'm sure we'll be talking about today, working on other aspects of the life cycle impacts. All of that is necessary, I think, to create a more sustainable industry. So, Mark, I will hand it back to you.
So, Rod, just to kind of summarize that, you've got an industry initiative. It's based on collaboration across different sectors. Not just for-profit industries, retailers and brands, but manufacturers, trade associations, university researchers. It's fact-based, and if companies are interested in Field to Market, do they have to be experts in sustainability to join or to learn about your organization? What can companies in the intimate sector expect if they wanted to learn more about that?
Well, it's a great question, Mark. The answer is you just have to have an interest in where your raw materials are coming from and how they're produced, and really committing a commitment to sustainability and supporting farmers in that journey and in that process. That's really the starting point. And so organizations and companies join as members of Field to Market with this sort of commitment that, we're going to work together on sustainability, specifically focusing at the farm level. To be very clear, this is for companies that are sourcing cotton from the United States and wanting to get a better understanding of their supply chains and how we can work together to make improvements over time, and also to communicate more credibly about the science-based sustainability conversation. So yes, that's right. You don't have to be experts in soil erosion or agronomy or fertilizers. There's a lot of folks around the table that are, and apparel companies can certainly, I think, benefit from that participation.
Great, thanks, Rod. If field to market and collaboration is about the raw material and the choices there, the next phase for us is product, actually creating intimates products. And I want to turn to Debbie Crystal, who is joining us from Caden Voss, and ask Debbie to first tell us a little bit about your company, but then very importantly, how did you develop your approach? How did you decide to formulate the strategy and the approach you took towards sustainability for your products and then communicating with your customers?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me. I'm always excited to talk about Caden Voss. So I started Caden Voss a little over 3 years ago. And when I started the company, Caden Voss actually means in Latin, the caretaker and you. And so my whole mission was taking care of customers, and specifically plus size customers who are, you know, severely discriminated against in their options and accessibility in the fashion industry. And I base my business decisions off of research and data. And the main thing that the plus size customers kept saying is, we want cotton. We want products that are comfortable. And for them, it was cotton. And we know that for decades, repeatedly, that's what we've heard. And when I asked them, you know, what is it about cotton that you like? The main things that they would say is that it's breathable, it's soft, and it's comfortable. Their main focus was not necessarily the sustainability aspect. And my thought was, there are so many amazing things about cotton that our customer doesn't know, and that's okay. But in communicating to them and helping them learn more, the first thing I wanted to do was to validate their desire for that. Because when you validate someone, you're basically telling them, I hear you, your needs are important. And so we first say, yes, we're doing this because it's what you want, but you're also doing something amazing for your body, because cotton, you know, you don't get chafing or rashes like you would with synthetics. And then in addition to their health, we communicate with them about the amazing benefits of using cotton for our environment, and how, like you mentioned with the water, and how the microfibers are getting more into our water systems. Having them know that by choosing cotton, it's better for their health, better for their family's health, the people they love, and our environment, that gives them an extra boost of, wow, I'm doing something good. I'm not only enjoying the benefits of this product, but I'm doing something for the greater good by buying it and wearing it. So that really reinforces our need for the use of natural fibers. And the fun way that we try to communicate that is, we do fun YouTube videos and we write blogs. And I know that one of the hard things is that a lot of customers, when they hear sustainability, they think, okay, it's kind of goes over their head, because it's been so overused, and, you know, there's been misinformation. And by breaking it down in things that matter to them, they are better able to understand that the benefits of cotton are sustainable. I hope that makes sense, the way that I was saying that.
Yeah, Debbie, I want you to comment just briefly on the cost of sustainability. It sounds like a lot of the things that you have chosen to do for your company could be applied for a lot of companies in the intimates area. Was it costly for you to develop or implement ideas and communicate about sustainability?
No, absolutely not at all. I mean, as a researcher, you know, going into looking at all the different available materials, having known Mark and my personal love of cotton, it was so easy to find phenomenal data-based research and resources through the Cotton Incorporated website. And the graphics, the information is already there. There are simple graphics that you can, incorporate into your blogs. You can just do one post on your social media, or, do a short YouTube video. So no, it did not cost anything to share the benefits of cotton and the sustainability that it brings to our earth. It didn't cost anything.
And that's an interesting observation, because one could also say, I think the experience across the industry is, and Debbie, you kind of referred to this, consumers aren't necessarily willing to pay more for sustainability. Study after study, example after example of people in the industry and companies show that consumers expect it. They don't necessarily think they should pay more for it. They expect the company to be doing the right things and the products to be made the right way. So as we talk about raw material and we talk about product and a company strategy, what about the holistic definition of sustainability? Sometimes in our industry, we think about just making products and selling them. But Kathleen, I want to turn to you, because you've taken a very different approach to making the industry think, and specifically the intimates industry, think about the afterlife and the after product. So talk to us a little bit about what your initiative was and how you approach that aspect of the total life cycle of an intimate product.
Thank you, Mark. And just to start, thank you, everybody. I learned something from your presentation. I didn't know organic did not mean no pesticides. And here I am doing this day in, day out for a long time and on all these panels and certifications. And I did not know organic cotton does not mean no fertilizer. So I learned something. So my company is the Bra Recycling Agency. And in the introduction was patent pending. And 2 weeks ago, we got our full patent. So I created a way with the company Leggett and Platt. They are the carpet padding company that supplies to Home Depot and Lowe's and commercial carpet padding. And we designed a way to chop, grind, and bead a bra, and then separate the components with a patent pending methodology, including magnetizing out the underwire, which is mainly steel, which is something I learned way back when. And we turn it into commercial carpet padding. So it's actually called upcycling, as you know, if you're going to get technical about recycling. Recycling would make a bottle into a bottle. Upcycling is changing it into something else. And our commercial carpet padding partners, Leggett and Platt, when they sell this to, say, any commercial builder, it lasts typically about 30 years in any building. I mean, I know you don't change carpeting so often every 10 years, but in a commercial facility, it'd be 30 years. And 30 years from today, we'll have all new technologies that will advance the way we produce end of life for our products. So hopefully there'll be a new solution in 30 years, but it puts a pause on all the foam, the textile, the steel, the ring and slide that would normally go to the oceans. And we have found that when people recycle, I guess women are hoarding bras, or they have a lot of bras that they don't want to throw out, because when you get rid of a bra, the only option up till today would be either to donate the bra, which is good, but we're finding that when you donate a bra, if it's not brand new, it's really not ideal, especially with COVID, to donate a bra. That's really a clothing drive. It's not recycling. And a lot of those bras are unusable, so they come back to us to recycle anyway. So we find that when women recycle, they don't just recycle one. The average has been 7 for us, and it's been up to 60 or 70. So in our research, we've discovered pretty much 500 million bras are sold every year. And if we're recycling 7 for every recycling interaction, that would be about 50,000 tons reduced every single month. And how we do that is we sell certifications, and we also do it with text and mobile. We have a system and a platform that allows women to recycle their bra by texting BRA to 79274 and integrating technology into a recycling story has been really important for us, especially with contactless and COVID. It's a way for retailers to connect with consumers. They can upload their shopping cart while we're recycling. So we put in a lot of economic value when we're selling our certifications. And the certifications are a way to prevent greenwashing, because if you say, hey, we recycle bras, who knows? But if you recycle bras and use the BRA certification, you have funded that certification license and all that goes with it. So that's how we do it. We do recycling bras through certification or by text and mobile.
Great, that's a great overview. Let's dive into some other aspects of our issue and our challenge of moving towards sustainability and ways that can help businesses and customers. Rod, I want to go back to you for a moment and talk about what are some of the challenges that apparel companies are facing when they're trying to understand sustainability or measurement or the science. Are there unique challenges for apparel manufacturers or retailers or brands in trying to get their hands around and their understanding around the science and what's involved in measurement?
Well, a couple things. One is, I think as we've already, all of us have identified, there are a lot of facets to sustainability when it comes to the apparel sector. And so what are the issues that are really relevant or germane that we should be focusing on? And within the cotton production side, at the farm level, there are 8 indicators that we look at, that we track progress against over time. As Mark, as you said early on, there's no simple way to convey like a single number, 3 out of 5 or whatever, when you're talking about the interplay of a lot of different items, because there are trade-offs. Sometimes water versus greenhouse gases versus soil, et cetera, it may look different depending upon the practices that you're using. And it also can be a bit region specific. What are the issues that are most relevant in one particular area versus another? So we have to approach farmers with as much of a sort of a local specificity as possible. What are the issues that they need to tackle in the area where they're growing? If it's in a water scarce area, it might be about improving irrigation. If it's in an area where there's been a lot of erosion historically, we work on that. The complexity is you can't avoid it. It's built in, and you have to really address it as locally as possible. And that gets back to the second point, which is when it comes to raw materials, especially agricultural materials, there are thousands and tens and thousands of farmers that are producing cotton, and you can't treat it as one size fits all. It's challenging to have full traceability, and so the industry has to come up with ways in which we enable mass balance, or looking at perhaps national snapshots of data and that can be aggregated up. The supply chains are very complex and have a lot of players the further back you go, all the way to the farm level. And so coming up with systems, multi-stakeholder processes, collaboration to make sure that we're communicating in a credible way, that's necessary when you have so many farmers involved in the system. So Mark, I would point out both of those.
Good, a helpful understanding. Debbie, I want to explore something with you. You're a designer as well as running your company. Is it possible to be both fashionable and sustainable? How do you approach that trade-off, or is it a trade-off? Do companies have to choose one or the other? Because I think we would argue that in this industry, and certainly in intimates, fashion is absolutely critical, and consumers are looking for that in products. So how do you approach that trade-off from a designer and a CEO perspective?
Yeah, so what I've noticed over the last, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years is that there is a transfer of power, if you will, when it comes to design. For as long as, throughout history, design has always been in the power of the designer. And they've been viewed as this, sort of godlike. Whatever they create, the customer has to wear. And that's changing. Customers are learning that they have a lot of power in their pocketbooks. And companies that aren't listening to their customers aren't faring as well as companies that are listening to their customers. And when you tie in sustainability, there is no trade-off. You can be fashionable and provide for your customer what they want while using sustainable materials. And the research that Cotton Incorporated has done with with the different technologies for cotton, you can get some amazing drapes. You don't just think of a t-shirt. I think a lot of people do when they think of cotton, they think of that really basic jersey knit, but there are so many incredible materials that are made out of cotton that can be used in intimates. They can be like silky and have that soft surface feel, all the way to like a fancy dress can be made of cotton and not necessarily look like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, interesting. Share with us, if you will, maybe an example or two of some of the customer feedback that you've received about the statements you've made, or your blog, or other ways you've addressed sustainability on your site.
Yeah, a lot of people, have the aha moments and they say, oh, wow, I had no idea that cotton could be moisture wicking and quick drying. For example, with the trans dry technology that we use in our lounge bras, we know a lot of larger women, sweat. Or underneath their breast and in the armpit area. So having that added benefit that is made of mostly cotton is kind of mind-blowing for them. And they love that. They can have natural fibers that are soft and breathable and biodegrade in 4 to 8 weeks in the right conditions. And also have the modern technology parts of it.
Yeah, good, thanks. We talk about customer feedback, and Kathleen, I want to explore that a little bit, because when you talk about when we consider what you've done to kind of focus attention on recycling or upcycling the bras, have you found that it's been difficult to educate the manufacturers and the retailers and the brands, or have you also been able to maybe deal with the challenge of increasing consumer awareness of the capability to recycle and upcycle?
It's a great question. Both. What I try to focus on is two paths, exactly what you're saying. Both the consumer, I'm trying to educate them and create demand directly through consumer with the text, and through the stores. So what I do is I put together a couple of math scenarios to show them that, hey, if you buy the certification or whatever our fees are, because we have to pay for the recycling, if you translate that into, you have a sustainability story, you're going to recycle 7 bras times about $40 a piece is $320. And if the download is 60 cents, then that's $420 versus 60 cents. So we have had to simplify the benefit that way, because in the beginning, when I started in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, no one wanted to talk about green, but culture and demand has changed. Women want green now, sustainability, and that has helped. I mean, all the good work was really available 5 years ago, but nobody wanted to hear about it. And there are women who will pay a little more for a sustainable product. I mean, just look at Whole Foods. People went to Whole Foods for paying more for organic food. So we try to educate the value at, we call it return, instead of ROI, return on investment, we call it ROE, return on emotion, because you're connecting with women on something that's doing good for the planet while benefiting a new sale. And new sales are good. The reason you want to recycle and do something new is like cotton and a lot of other textile and great designers like Debbie, we're coming up with new great things. But if you have piles of fast fashion or piles of bras, you're not compelled to buy new. You're like, I got enough. So we're trying to say, trade in the old and look at the great technology that designers and textile makers are bringing out that are more sustainable. So it's not just a greedy proposition where buy new. It's, hey, buy new. The technology that's new is better. And we're trying to communicate that directly to consumers too, so they can choose to recycle directly without waiting for brands and retailers to catch up. So we're educating them and saying, look at the ROE, ROI, and then we're going to consumers directly to say, trade in, and we're collecting that data, and hopefully we'll be able to monetize that data through advertising. So we're trying to come up with different economic models to grow the benefits faster and to reduce the landfill, and the pollution caused by plastics and those things. You have to.
Mark, I wanted to piggyback off of what Kathleen was saying here, and circle it back to what Rod does in the industry. The farmers, like, we couldn't do what we do without those people and without Cotton Incorporated. And my co-founder comes from a long line of farmers. And I think having those types of connections in our end, more on the retail consumer end, really understanding the lived experience and the work that goes into simply making the fiber, sharing that story with customers also goes a long way, because then they know, like, oh, there are people that actually grow this material. And I think that's really powerful, and something that is often, I think it's forgotten. If you bring it up, most people are like, oh yeah, that's right. A person does actually farm this and grow it so that someone else can make it into material, and someone else can cut it and design it and package and make it available for us. So I think really, I love that, Rod is a part of this panel, because it's not just the consumer end. It goes all the way back to the farming part and the humans that do that.
And it takes all
an excellent panel.
chain to make truly sustainable products, and I think it's such a good point.
Yeah. Well, let me open the conversation up then.
The farmer, the designer, and the recycler at the end of life.
Yeah. Let me open the conversation across our panel and ask anybody to just jump in the few minutes we have left. What do you see as some of the challenges going forward in communicating sustainability? Rod, at your level, the way you work with the companies, and Debbie at a product and a designer and business level, and Kathleen, and looking at what you're bringing to end of product life and reuse and upcycling.
Well, I mean, I can start by just saying, I think, and again, I think my role in this conversation is a bit unique and perhaps a bit more technical, but part of the challenge is translating technical science-based information to consumer audiences that are not technical at all, and really don't want to have to worry about those things. They want to trust the companies that they're purchasing the products from. And so how can the companies demonstrate their commitment to responsible sourcing and supporting farmers in this way? So we have to take pretty complex information and make it as simple as possible, and also just make sure that consumers can trust that the supply chain is doing the right things. So I think that's really fundamental and important in this whole process.
Yeah, good. Debbie?
Yeah, well, I absolutely, Ron, you're absolutely right. That's the same approach that that we take at Caden Voss, and we believe that transparency is the most important thing when it comes to, you know, any claims that you make about sustainability. And for us, that was sharing. It took a lot of time, but we wanted to know, where was this cotton grown? You know, what, we couldn't pin down the exact farm, but we could find the regions. And so we put together a short video of our supply chain and told our customers, these are the regions that the cotton is grown. This is the factory that we use to make the yarn. This is the factory where it's dyed and colored. And this is the factory that cuts and sews it. And then this is where we distribute. And we share all of that information freely. And our customers can look up the companies. And that way, my thought is, if a company has something to hide or something they don't want to share, it's probably, they probably have a reason for that. So my business, another part of business making is this something I would be embarrassed to share with my customers? And if the answer is yes, then that's probably not the right decision to make. So yeah, being transparent about any sustainability claims that you make are super important, and I think a challenge a lot of other companies are struggling with.
Kathleen?
Challenges? The challenge is, I'm here as part of this panel, but honestly, we're all, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I'm an entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur, funding is always a challenge. I mean, how do you get the message out there unless you got Facebook ads or Instagram ads or a team or a staff or things like that? Funding is part of it. Look at, the big retailers out there. Are they participating? How do you reach them? You really need, a larger company. So right now we're, working towards venture capital to grow, because these are great ideas and they always come from crazy entrepreneurs. But then, how do you get the quote, no pun intended, the seed capital to really expand it? So, Macy's, Victoria's Secret, Target, Walmart, they all know. I give kudos to ThreadUp, who has now gotten into 20 stores at Walmart. So, but they, paid a lot of dues for a lot of years. TerraCycle is another one. They just got funded by JP Morgan. It needs some money. The other thing is that we're doing is we're creating on text and mobile through our partners, Quasi, a gaming and a point system, because a lot of consumers, they're educated, but, the panelist was saying, do they want to do all this work? We have something like sun power. Right now, my solar panels in my house are generating a report to me of how many trees I'm saving and how much CO2 emissions. So we send our customers a report, how every time they recycle with us, whether it's a big account, medium size, or even a consumer, we give them a little chart of how much plastic they reduced. We like to tell them the chart, and we're working towards converting that into a point system on the phone, and with games on the phone that you can guess how many, how much water it takes to make organic cotton. We're going to try to engage a few industries in fashion into this point system, so that consumers can learn and educate while earning points. I mean, airline industries do this with airline points. A lot of companies leasing cars. It's been done before, so, the business model is there. But I think educating consumers is hard. Educating them with points to shop with is easier, and it's been done before. So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, good luck with that venture. It sounds logical. Before we bring this discussion to a conclusion, I just want to ask each member of the panel to very, very briefly tell our participants in this discussion today where they can go to learn more about your company or your organization. So Rod, where can people go?
Yes, our website is fieldtomarket.org, all spelled out. You can learn more about the science-based metrics, the work that we have going with farmers across the United States. And Mark, I'll just make one last comment, which is, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. If you care about these issues, just get started on the journey, learn a bit more, and figure out where you can fit into the conversation. You don't have to know it all and solve it all right away. Just be a part of the solution.
Great. Thanks, Rod. Debbie, where can folks go to learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, so kadevos.com, KADEVOS. We have a huge section on sustainability. We've got a huge section on activism. So there's lots of information there, and you can reach out to us on our social medias too.
Great, thank you. And Kathleen, where can folks find out more about your organization?
My website is brawrecyclingagency.com. And a shout out to Rob. I love that. Just get started, not being perfect. Wow, that's what I do every day. I'm imperfect every single day. Or you can simply text on your phone, BRA to 79274, and you'll get a link to our website and a downloadable permit where you can mail in your bras for free.
Well, great, thank you. And I want to thank all our panelists today for providing their insights from different aspects of the industry. And I would encourage all of the participants in the session today to follow up and learn more about these individuals and their organizations. These are all tremendous source of ideas and assets and resources for all of you as you think about moving toward more sustainable practices in your businesses and achieving great ways to communicate what you're doing with your customers. So thanks to our panelists, and thanks to everyone for joining us in the session today.
Great.